Hey Joe, it's Folks here.
Hey Cassie, it's everyone here.
And today we're going to talk about some things that you should know before starting a print-on-demand store on Shopify.
And on Etsy.
And Cassie and I thought this would be a great video to make because we have seen a lot of people do really well, and we've also seen a lot of people make some big mistakes. I started my first store in 2016.
And I started my first Etsy store in 2020.
And right now it's pretty clear that print on demand is growing. You can see here on the Google trend that interest in the business model has been increasing. Recently, I flew to Latvia to attend Printify's Amplified event at their headquarters, which was awesome. During the event, even the co-founder of Printify was referencing this fact that print on demand is growing. He even referenced this article here. We also have lots of people on YouTube making content, telling you what to do, sharing their experience. And this begs the question, why then, if print on demand is so awesome, are so many people struggling to get any results at all? Now, Cassie, I think one thing that's important here is when you're starting print on demand to start in the right way. And when I say right way, I mean you have to treat your print on demand store like a real business. I mean, take a look at this store here. This is a print on demand store that I got inside of my Facebook group. No shade to the person that created this. I'm only trying to help. This to me does not feel like a real business. Essentially what's been done here is the person has created a pattern that really doesn't pertain to a specific niche, and they've put it all over lots of different products. With print on demand, you can't really have the mentality that if you build it, they will come. Meaning, if the only thing you're doing is creating an abstract pattern like this and hoping that people will buy it because you created it, you might be one of those people that ends up closing down their shop after 90 days due to not making any sales. Here's another example here. This store is called Marcel Mar. It does not have a logo, as you can see at the top of the screen. And as we scroll down, we see some very sort of random items here. Basically, this store seems to have been thrown together to try to take advantage of the Halloween season. As we're making this video, it's early October, and the store owner likely thought that if they put together a shirt like this and threw it out there, that because we're going into the holiday season of Halloween, people would buy it. And another thing here that I see a lot of beginners do is try to create their own clothing line. This store here is called TrueNobilis.com. This seems to be some sort of a name with a logo with a lot of motivational sentences that someone put together to sort of try to create their own brand, their own clothing line. In most cases, this sort of a thing is going to not work out. And again, that is because with print on demand, what we're trying to do is sell products to strangers. When you're building your store, you need to put it together for a specific niche. Now, those were obviously on Shopify. Cassie focuses on Etsy. Cassie, do you have an example that you could show of maybe something similar on Etsy where someone didn't treat it like a real business?
Absolutely. I think I could probably find 1,000 examples if you gave me just a few minutes, but I'll show one right here. This particular listing is a really good example of people kind of just making up what they want to design. And I think this is a trap that a lot of people fall into when they first get started. They're like, I'm going to make a bunch of stuff that I just like and kind of make it up out of my head and make designs like this one, where the saying kind of makes sense, but it doesn't have anything to do with the music or the pigs. None of it really is emotionally connective to the customer that would actually want to purchase this. To be successful on Etsy, you really need to research what people are already coming to the platform, searching for and buying, and add value to those niches that people are already purchasing. And that's really the recipe that it takes to be successful on Etsy and treat it like a business. And that's how you'll find success. If you just throw a bunch of random stuff up there and hope something sticks, you're going to have a bad time and be wasting your time.
I completely agree. Cassie, before we move on to the next topic, which is all about copyrights and trademarks, I want to show you this store here. This is a store that has basically created an amazing brand on Shopify, selling products to people that love theme parks. They have come up with really creative ways to showcase their niche, and people that like theme parks would love to own their things. Like you were saying, sometimes people just kind of put things together for themselves and they don't think about creating things for other people. And this is just an example of someone that did a great job with that.
Yeah, I love that store. Personally, I really love roller coaster parks. I'm a roller coaster junkie, so that is
Awesome.
right up my alley. I can definitely tell you they did a good job with those designs.
Basically, what we're saying is print on demand is a business model where you're selling products to strangers, which means you need to act like it and create something that people who don't know you will buy on an impulse as they're scrolling social media or as they're clicking through 31 pages of Etsy results in the search. Some tips would be to maybe avoid just using a photograph as your design, or like I said earlier, coming up with a brand name and putting it on hoodies. You could also avoid just creating abstract patterns and throwing them on different types of apparel. None of that stuff is niche specific, and in most cases, strangers will not actually buy that stuff because they don't have a reason to. The reason people buy print on demand products, which is one of the main points we are trying to make in this video, is because of your niche and how you're using your design to represent that niche. If you nail that part, you're likely going to have a pretty good print on demand product. Another major part of this business to pay attention to is copyrights and trademarks. Many beginners that are just jumping into this don't understand that there are certain things that you can't use. Meaning, if you do use them, you could potentially face a lawsuit or even having your store shut down. A trademark is basically something that is legally protected for a specific brand. I'm talking about something like their logo or a slogan like the Nike Just Do It. Those are going to be things that you want to avoid. Those are protected by trademark and you cannot use them in your designs. Secondly, a copyright is a little bit different than a trademark. A copyright is something that naturally protects a creative work. What I'm talking about is something like a song lyric or a character name in a movie or something like that. When you're making your print on demand designs, you want to avoid that stuff to help yourself avoid any sort of a lawsuit or even having your shop shut down. Now, Cassie, you're someone who's obviously created a lot of print on demand designs. Could you maybe pretend that I am someone that is getting started with print on demand and maybe just talk me through how I might go about making sure that what I want to do in my design is not a trademark violation?
Absolutely. If you're designing, it's really important to check for trademarks on any terms that you use. Something as simple as just one word on a shirt can be trademarked. Whole phrases can be trademarked. And so you just need to make it part of your process that you go check the USPTO trademark website to ensure that what you're selling isn't trademarked. And so if you check these and it's not trademarked for the item that you're selling, then you're good to go for now. But it is important to know that things can get trademarked down the line as well. And so finding some kind of system to come back and check those terms that you use later on can be a good thing. Or one thing that I do to make sure that I'm a little bit protected against that is typically if there's a really particular saying on a shirt, like let's say life's a beach, you say that on your shirt, most people probably aren't going to Etsy and looking for that exact saying. They're probably looking for a funny summer shirt. And so what I'll do is I won't include what it says on my shirt anywhere in the title or the tags. If I really don't think it's something that someone will be searching for, I will just not include it. That way, if it does get trademarked down the line, I don't get immediately found by the person holding the trademark. It gives me a little bit more time to find out that it's trademarked and take it down myself.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that is something that a lot of people don't know actually exists, like the federal government's trademark search. I will put a link for that in case anybody's wondering. It'll be down in the pinned comment if you wanted to check it out. One thing I see a lot of beginners do with their print on demand store is they put way too much pressure on themselves. What I mean by that is that they start their store and they think that within their first 30 days they need to be just like Cassie Johnson and be able to make a lot of money from their print on demand store. What I often remind a lot of people that are just getting started is that it's okay to sort of make some mistakes in the beginning. It's okay that if in your first 30 days you do not have a best selling product. Just like anything you do in your life, you're likely going to face some sort of struggle. You're likely going to make some mistakes, and that is okay.
I couldn't agree more, Joe. I definitely see a lot of new people get started and they're a week in, 2 weeks in, or even a month and haven't gotten their first sale yet and are thinking about quitting. When in reality, starting a print on demand business, I would hope that you would go into it thinking that this is a long-term business model. It takes time to build build something that could potentially make you any kind of substantial money or even eventually replace your full-time income. But that doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without a lot of hard work and trial and error. One quote that I heard someone say recently was, you have to climb their mountain to see their view. And I think that resonates really well with Etsy sellers, because a lot of people start and they make 20 designs and wonder why they're not rich yet, but they're looking at stores that are making tons of money that have thousands of listings, and you can't expect that you're going to be the magical unicorn that's going to put in 2% effort and get the same results as someone who's been working at it for years. So I think going into this with a mindset that it's not going to be easy. We all start off with a different amount of skills when we first get started. Some people will be better than others right out of the gate. Some of you will get 40 or 50 or 100 sales your first month, and some of you will get 0, but all of you can get to the same place if you just dedicate yourself to the research. I'd say that's the biggest thing that people really underestimate, is how much time you need to research and learn, and then take what you're learning and put it into action.
Sometimes I also see, people that are doing something like what you explained, where they're putting all that pressure on themselves at the beginning, and they're just so afraid to fail. They're almost more afraid to fail than they are excited to potentially succeed. I sometimes joke with people, failure is almost inevitable. You're likely going to fail in some way with your print-on-demand store, so you might as well just start, so that way you can get that part out of the way, and you can progress through, you can learn from your mistakes, and ultimately, like you said, you can climb that mountain and see the same view of the person you're trying to be.
I totally agree. A lot of people do months worth of research before they get started. And while I think that it's good to go into it with some idea of what to expect, there's so much of it that you're not going to be able to learn until you actually get started and you're doing it yourself. You can't just memorize all of it, and then once you get started, you'll be ready. It's one of those things that you'll never be 100% ready for. So I think if I was to give anyone advice today, it'd be, if you're sitting here watching your 100th video and you haven't even opened your Shopify store or your Etsy store yet, just get started today. Take care of some of the little things like setting up your Etsy store, setting up your Printify account. All those things are going to take time, but if you take one baby step forward every single day, eventually you'll be where you want to go, and you'll just wonder why you didn't get started sooner.
There's another quote that I've heard where you almost need to turn one day into day one, right? So like you said, you just have to get started and make today your day one, and you almost have to give yourself that grace to sort of be bad at print on demand, just like anything that we all try in life. If you're thinking about starting POD and you're concerned, like you should be, because no matter what you're doing in life, you're likely going to have some sort of growing period. I'm sure, Cassie, there's been things in your life before that you started and you weren't really that great at it in the beginning. And, same for me. There's been things that I've started and I did a really bad job, including print on demand. When I started my first store, I didn't make any sales for about 6 months. I think anybody, I don't know about you, Cassie, but I would probably, I can't guarantee anything. I would be pretty close to guaranteeing, though, that anybody who is making any sort of amount of money with a print on demand store is likely selling products that they didn't create at the beginning. Meaning anybody who's found success with print on demand is likely successful with products that they created after some sort of an initial failure with the business model. And again, I don't know if you were perfect from the beginning, but that's definitely been my story.
No, definitely my story looks very similar. I tell my story that my first month with print on demand, I had about 100 things for sale by the end of that month, and only 2 of them sold. So thank goodness I found something, but those 2 items aren't in my store anymore. Sure. I got a little bit lucky with a holiday coming up and I happened to be ready for it, and that was great. But then the next year it didn't even sell for that holiday. So the majority of my great sellers came, 6 months, a year, 2 years in, I started having listings take off a lot more.
I think sometimes too, some of the things that we're talking about really come from people having a mindset that print on demand is a get rich quick type of business. And maybe they're not even looking at it as like get rich, but they're almost looking at print on demand as a business that you're sort of following an instruction manual and like assembling a machine, and then if you follow the instructions correctly and then turn the machine on, that it produces results for you, right? And that's not how this is. We've shown examples so far today where this is like truly a living, breathing thing, something that you need to create in a really epic way. You need to give a lot of thought to the niches that you're choosing, the designs that you're making for them. And if you're not making sales, it's not because you didn't follow step 3, it's because you have a problem with what you're actually presenting, to the world. And this is definitely not a get rich quick type of business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. While I would say that this side hustle is quote unquote easy in some ways compared to a lot of other things, obviously we don't have to open a brick and mortar store. We don't have to buy tons of equipment. We don't have to buy products, right? It's easy to get into, and day by day, the things you do feel easy. None of it's super hard, but you do have to be tactful and again, do a lot of research to really understand what goes into it and how to add value.
Sure. I was just going to say, I always say this is a simple but not easy business model. It is simple in the sense that you need to create a great shop, have great products, great designs. If you put those in front of people, they will buy it.
I couldn't agree more. I think simple, not easy makes a lot more sense. I'm probably going to steal that, Joe, because that's really good. And I think that really encompasses it. When you get started, a lot less of your designs will sell because they might not connect as well emotionally, right? Like one example of that I saw was a keeper of the gender shirt. It's a shirt that you'd sell that would be the person who's going to tell everyone at the gender reveal party if it's a boy or if it's a girl. And I saw a shirt and there was like green and yellow in the design. When if you're really thinking about the niche and what connects the most, pink and blue color would make the most sense. And it's those little stitches in your designs that will eventually start to make sense and will start to make the difference where people see it and they're like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for. And then you'll start getting a lot more sales.
Sure. That's actually a really good segue, Cassie. Maybe I'll have you back in the future and we can talk about creating designs and different small things that you could do like that. I think today was awesome. Thank you again for your time. I hope if you're watching this that maybe you feel a little bit more equipped to actually start a print-on-demand store. Really, the mantra of today's video was to encourage you to treat this like a real business and to really think about what it is you're putting out there and to realize that at the end of the day, you are asking strangers to buy products from you. And in order to do that, you need to create something epic. Hopefully this video is helpful. If you need help actually building a store, make sure to check out my free Print on Demand for Dummies course. There's a link down in the description. Again, Cassie, thank you. Where can people find you if they wanted to go and check you out if they have never seen you before?
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. I really appreciate you having me on. I've been watching your channel for years. That was really cool to come on and actually join you on the other side of your video here. And I hope that this video was super helpful for people. And if you want to come check out my content on my channel, it's just Cassie Johnson on YouTube. And I also have my website, cassiejohnson.com. That's got some of the resources that I offer.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys are just looking for an easy way to find her, I will put a link to all of that in the pinned comment of this video. So again, thank you, Cassie. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me. Goodbye, everyone.